I would like to invite, so it's going to be a panel discussion about mainstreaming family diversity and equal opportunities into action. Interactive panel featuring LGBTIQ+ friendly business. So, I would like to invite 3 panelists. It will be first Mariano, Andrade Gonzalez, who is, as we know, Lithuania's country management for Moodys, Lithuania. Please, Mariano. Then we're going to have Amelia Sestilo. She is diversity lead, Telia Global Service in Lithuania and Telia. There we are. And we have Dr. Jean-Luc Veillet. Oh, almost. Yeah, so he's a member of the board of PROUT with T at Work, which is a leading German think tank providing advice and shaping the debates on LGBTQ+ topics in the workplace. Here we are. We have 3 panelists. So you were asking questions before. I will be asking questions to you now. Okay. So I would like to start with Amelia. Amelia, sorry, to mispronounce your name. Yeah, so why does the corporate sector needs to incorporate the concept of diversity?
Well, the concept of diversity, and if I may add inclusion as well in that story, I think it's important not only for the business, but it is more of a recognition of a fundamental human right. And for companies, especially large companies like us in Telia, it is important for organizations like that to take a stand. And that having an impact alone internally might also transcend to the society where we operate. And more than that, as individuals, it's very important to, for an organization to create a safe space for all. And by communicating internally and externally that we take a stand on diversity and inclusion, then you create a safe space not only for the employees you have, but also for the society or like the customers that you serve even as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll go to Mariano, and perhaps you already to some extent answered your question with your question before. But I will ask you, you are among the most vocal supporters of diversity and human rights within the whole private sector in Lithuania. Why is it important for Moodys to stand for equality, equal opportunities, and human rights, and what added value it creates for Moodys?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. When we take the philosophical stand on human rights, then we need to understand that as a corporation, we cannot choose what human rights are we going to stand for. So therefore, it includes everything across the spectrum in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to think broadly around not only the society where we operate and the people that we employ, but also our customers and our clients. We have LGBTQI+ represented through the entire society. So turning a blind eye on the topic is not an option for us. It is a matter of principle. It is a matter of values. And we live through that by making sure that we can have a continuous education and programs inside our organization to make sure that we can incorporate all the different opinions, different genders, different perspectives of life. We have represented offices in over 120 countries. So, not standing for human rights and LGBTQ rights as part of our value proposition to customers and employees would be a force. So for us, it is an imperative that we keep on working for human rights, that we keep on making sure that through our work with organizations like the LGL, the Diversity Charter in Lithuania, and many other organizations around the globe, we are expressing as a corporate towards the government the importance for us as a foreign investor in your country, the stand that we take towards diversity and inclusion, not only for our internal policies, which they are very diverse and inclusive, but also towards the society and what our customers want.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to remind you all that the floor is open for questions. If you have any questions, just shoot, even though the most active questionnaires are sitting here, but here we go. So Jean-Luc.
Yes.
You present the largest inclusive business think tank in Germany. Mm-hmm. What is the story behind PROUT at work, and what does PROUT stands for?
Well, it's a long story, but I make it short, thank you. No, I'm just kidding. In fact, PROUT at Work started already, it was an idea 15 years ago, and because I was at that time leading the LGBTIQ network from the Deutsche Bank, I'm also the co-founder, and we got a lot of other companies and networks who were interested to know how do you do, what is your best practice, and etc. And I always think that bringing people together makes us much stronger and learning from each other. That was the idea. And in fact, PROUT with a T is a play on word between proud and pro-out, because we are for that more people are out and show who they are, because we need role models. And that's why we also started 3 years ago to publish in Germany a list of out executives, but also of straight allies, because we think it's very, very important. So it started really as a NGO, let's say 8 years ago, so close 8 years ago in December 2013, and now we have, with 8 companies, now we have, I think, 52 or 53 companies working with us, promoting LGBT, let's say, equality within companies in Germany, but also we just started in France as well. So, and we also have connections with many other countries, and we try to help as well.
Thank you very much. And I would like to ask Amelia also, are there any specific benefits of diversity in the telecom sector? How Telia built the diversity and inclusion footprint across the organization?
All right. Thanks for the question. I think it's beneficial not only for companies, but also those organizations, big or small, who are also thinking about how can I be part of this conversation, and how can I actually create a diversity and inclusion agenda within my organization. So our experience in Telia company, I speak for not only for Telia in Lithuania, but our experience across our footprint in the Nordics and the Baltics. The experience is, of course, the first step is to make a commitment as an organization that diversity and inclusion, it's not only an activity, an event, or a program, but it's a strategic commitment. And if it's a strategic commitment, that entails a systematic approach. And a systematic approach entails a footprint across the organization, attacking or looking into people, meaning the leaders of the organization, how do they treat, or what is the perception on diversity and inclusion. And people also entail the employees of the organization. Are they being educated and being aware of what actually diversity and inclusion means to us? And in our organization, we always open up conversations or meetings, or even all staff, in a sense that, hello, colleagues, this is an open and safe space for all. And it's always an invitation of open conversation, because you always need to be intentional about the message, and that you always need to reinforce that in the different kinds of channels that you can. So that is a very strong action that we take, but it doesn't stop on the people. There are 2 other pieces that I have to add. The next is the processes. If it's a systematic approach, then if you say diversity and inclusion, that doesn't come out only in your internal communication or external appearances. That has to be inculcated in your internal processes, like how you actually recruit your people. Are your hiring managers and recruiters trained on unconscious bias? And training alone does not give the solution as well. It's an ongoing dialogue, learning, peer-to-peer. Hey, how did these kinds of sessions, how did these kinds of candidate selection go? What biases have we experienced? But that's one process alone. In rewards, in terms of performance management, when we talk about how performance among different groups of people, are we also experiencing bias? So all those kinds of things, all those kinds of processes are important. And finally, the programs. And when I meant about programs, these are not just events internally. It's very important to have employee-driven events because you see the faces behind diversity. And in our company, we always say, diversity, it's like inviting people to a party. But inclusion is inviting somebody to talk to you or to dance with you in the party. So it doesn't really stop in the diversity part. And this is a message that we always remind people. And for that, we need allies. And the programs doesn't stop internally. That's why we are in events like these, because Telia as an organization alone, it's large. It's a large organization within Lithuania, but it's a single company. We need allies. And diversity and inclusion, it's not something that you have to compete with among organizations. We are better in this and that and that. But it's more about driving the message across, not only within the organization, but the society that you serve. And I guess that's even a broader or bigger impact in changing the hearts and minds of people, especially in the journey where Lithuania is taking towards this story of inclusion that we have.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Mariano how the concept of diversity is reflected in Moody's policies and practices.
Well, it's very similar to what Amelia just mentioned in Telia. We have from a glossary of gender-neutral vocabulary for you to use. For example, we would avoid calling the chairman of the board. We will say the chairperson of the board. We will have, as much as we can, a compilation of vocabulary and translate it into different languages to make sure that we have a cultural approach towards gender neutrality. That's one. Second, we have a strategy similar to what Amelia mentioned in Telia. The strategy means that then you're focusing all the way on your unconscious bias and stripping the CVs from picture, gender, and then focusing, including the university, by the way. I think it is important that some of the roles will need to have an education attachment to it, but at the moment of the selection of the candidates, at the moment of the screening of the candidates, it is irrelevant, your gender, your age, the university you come from. It is all about the role. So we have the constant training, we have the tooling that underpins that constant training, and we have the cultural activities around that throughout the year. And it's good that you mentioned the diversity and inclusion, and diversity goes across a bigger spectrum than just LGBTI. And for us, the concept of diversity means that, for example, this month, if you will open the website on Moodys, you will see that we're talking around the Hispanic Cultural Month. And that through that, you have a BRG, Business Resource Group, that focuses on that. We have a very powerful resource group that focuses on LGBTQI+, because it is one of the topics that is most inequitative across different countries. The maturity level of the LGBTQ rights in our headquarters in the US, it is very different to what we currently stand on in Lithuania, for example. So when I can give you a very tangible example, we made an allyship event a couple of months ago, an allyship as open event for understanding what allyship means. Then that drove us into allyship for LGBTI specifically. So how many people in our organization were aware on what allyship means? Only 30%. But you will say only 30%? Well, 30% is a good start already. When we move into LGBTQI allyship, then the percentage was less. So the importance on understanding your policies, you have two sides of that story. Is you do have the policies, you have the strategy, you have the processes, you have the experts inside the organization to go through it. But equally, you need to recognize that you may have some resistance. You may have some groups internally that are unaware on how to respond to that. You may have some groups internally that may be against what you stand for in terms of diversity. So for us, the key component of it is our open mind towards a dialogue and towards that conversation. So we're not forcing anyone to take part into any other group, but we're very open about our policy and our company. It's open for everyone. We want you to feel safe, and we want you to bring your self-being into work, so you focus on your work rather than who you are or what people will think about you. What I have seen in my experience, Moodys in Lithuania is just 2 years old. But in those 2 years, compared to the previous organizations that I have worked for, now I see a lot of rainbow flags in the office throughout the year, meaning already that people say, I am an ally, I am comfortable to talk to you about LGBTQI. It didn't happen to the proportion that is happening now in Moodys before. So I think what I am experiencing now, working for an American company who stands for American values and goes through diversity and inclusion as a key component on your compensation policy, your benefits policy, the way you're going to be hired, the way you're going to be evaluated through your performance and how your career can move. And more importantly, how much importance we put into the countries where we are going to be making an investment. When Moodys was selecting between Lithuania and 2 other countries, one of the topics of discussions with the government is, are you LGBTQI friendly? Because I might have to move people from other countries that are LGBTQI, and I need to make sure that they will feel safe. So that encompasses the whole journey. It does not resolve any given problem in any given time. I don't think you can put a timeline into that. But I think it's a journey, and you're conquering some of those objectives one by one until you end up having an organization that you don't necessarily need to become an ally, a straight ally, if you don't want to. But you need to know what it is about, and you need to be aware that it's going to be happening throughout your career at Moodys, no matter where you go. So if you decide to move to the US, or you move to Dubai, or you move to Hong Kong, or you move to China, wherever you're going to move with Moodys, the policies are going to be the same. And that's when you start inflicting change in society. It might be slow. It might take a while for us to see that change transpiring into a country-level policy for more openness. But it's a start, as we mentioned before. The private sector needs to be more vocal around the importance of being an inclusive society, because excluding parts of the society, it is dividing us as a population. It is dividing our mental well-being, and is dividing us as I mentioned before. You cannot choose what human rights you want to defend. Human rights are given to all of us in equal amounts.
Thank you very much. You mentioned about the progress, and also in Moodys, and you mentioned about the rainbow flags coming up in some offices. I would like to ask, is it foreign workers who are doing that, or Lithuanians who are changing also?
It is mixed, and I will say, I'm very proud to say that I have spotted in the office for the first time as well, that even on our IT arm, the software developers that tend to be very much into software developing only, there are a couple of flags hanging there.
Thank you. Jean-Luc, we've spoken about a lot of European countries, but that's a big elephant in the room. Germany, we haven't spoken about Germany. And I would like to ask, what are the needs of and specifics of LGBTIQ plus families in Germany, and what are the ways to address them in workplace?
Okay, we do have some laws, but we are not so far as Switzerland. We just talked about it. So there are still some restrictions when it goes, for example, to parenting and other laws. So we are on the way, let's say, but still many things are to be done. And I would say there are several aspects. I guess one aspect is if I speak from company perspective, we have to be more aware and to bring more awareness about the subject, and that companies understand that it's a subject for them as well. And that's what we try to do with PROUT Work. So we are working at the moment on a brochure, I could call it, because that's what we do also as a think tank, where we try to explain to companies, what do you do? What are the actions you can take? And I think one of the most important is treat all parents as parents, whoever the parents are, if it's officially or not. And I think give to the people and to your employees all the same rights, the same possibilities, independent of it's a rainbow family or not a rainbow family. And because as a company, you can do many things. You can do even more things than the law allows. You only have minimum that you can do, but you can do more. And it can go in very different directions. For example, that you, for parents who have a trans child, that they get all the needs and the support they can have, or that you treat really the people the same way, independent what their sexual orientation or gender identity is, and that you do that for the family. And that's what we try to push the companies to do. And in fact, it's a way. It's coming slowly but surely. That I would say the need is really this awareness and to be treated with respect, I would say, like the others. And I wanted to add to what was said before. I think what I always say and what we always say, we all have a role in what you were describing at all levels in companies and also outside the companies as client. We can influence what happens inside and the culture. And that's independent for which group it is. Is it for LGBT, for people, disabled people, for etc. and co. So we all have a role to play. We cannot say others will do that. That's something I want to say because that's important, and I believe we should say that more and more often. And I think it's very important for companies, as you said, to have a plan, to do it on the long term, because it's a long-term effort. It's not only to be at one different event. So that was I found it very good what you just said. And yes, I mean, it's a long way. And I mean, you also have a long way here. And one thing I would like to add as well, what I see in Germany changing is that companies are starting to understand that they have a political power. What I mean with political power, that means they can change the law or have an influence on changing laws. That's something very new for Germany, even if it's known, as you said, as we discussed before, in UK, US. And in Europe, it's not that much, but I see the change. For example, we have been able to gather more than 20 big companies to sign a statement asking for a change in the law in Germany, dealing with the Telia. Gay men who wanted to give blood, donate blood, had to have 12 months abstinence, so 12 months without sex, to be clear, to be able to officially give blood. But cis men was only, I think, they're complete other requirements. So it's really discriminatory. And we achieved, with the help first of Metro, and to get many companies on board. And we are only not that big success as you have, but a small success to reduce it from 12 months to 3 months. And we hope that we will get so that there's no discrimination and no difference between cis or gay men in that sense. And I'm very happy that we had 20 companies, big ones, signing that and saying, we stand for that and we will fight for it. And I think it's one way where we could all work together. And I'm sure it's difficult. We see the challenge, for example, I make it short, we have been contacted by RTL, the television, because the RTL Hungary would like to do a campaign against this new law, and saying that the people should say no in the referendum. And they were asking us, through RTL Germany, can you get some big companies on board to say they stand for it? That's tricky. To be honest, that's tricky. Because, first of all, we had to get the companies in Hungary to agree with that. And I mean, nothing bad, but it's very difficult, and we are working on that. And we hope to get some, but it's a difficult way. So I understand your challenge here as well, just to say.
Thank you. I would like to ask all panelists the same question, and I'll start with Amelia. We spoke a lot about main benefits of building diversity in the corporate sector, but what are the main obstacles to do that?
The main obstacles. Well, you can look at it in two ways. Internally, I guess that's a very good place to start with, because when you are in an organization, you can create the workplace culture and environment that is based on your values and the principles you fight for. Of course, just like what Mariano mentioned, there might be some resilience internally, externally in the society as well, political stages where we are at. But I guess the important part there is the organization standing firm on your standing firm on the principles that you have, ensuring both like just like in Telia, one of our values is care. So we don't just say that as part of the values, but we really want to make sure that we are taking action on that. And for example, if we talk about inclusion of people of different parts of the organization, so that's showing that we care about not only driving it within, but also speaking out externally as well on that. So yes, the journey is long and we recognize that, but what is important is that we know what milestones we have to take in order to take this journey forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Mariano, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I'm thinking carefully about the obstacles, and it doesn't, you know, from the internal perspective at Moodys, it doesn't come out as obvious, because I don't think we really have obstacles. We have a lot of support internally to move the agenda forward. But when I think very specifically about Lithuania, well, we had already one case a couple of years ago where we needed to move a colleague that has been in Moodys for many years in the UK, who's open gay and he's married. And the reason he's not here is because his marriage would not be recognized, right? So he couldn't move with his family. So the immigration policy in that sense remains to be an obstacle for us to be able to promote careers and to be able to promote freedom of movement equally across our organization. So I do think that the biggest obstacle remains to be how can the private sector and the governments work together towards a progressive and rapid transition into the 21st century. It is still difficult for me to believe that you know, we have successfully gone through we are going successfully through the pandemic, and takes one email to send everyone home and work from home. But we cannot enforce human rights in a way that should be as simple as one email and saying, you know, this makes sense. It's a human right. So I think the biggest obstacle remains to be people, remains to be the differences that instead of being embraced and work them out as differences that makes us humans, they work out to play against each other. And as long as we don't understand that the way forward to a civil society that is progressive and that is neutral and that is truly moving forward, it is exactly that, moving forward, rather than, you know, taking baby steps here and there to then put a big blockade on something that just doesn't make sense.
Just one more question. You mentioned about the case when a possible specialist expert not able to come to Lithuania because of a partnership. Now Lithuania is talking about lack of specialists and that we need more and more of them. Do you see a big problem in it? Is it? Can you sort of say that a lot of cases, such a lot of cases happening?
You know, it's difficult to quantify, but put yourself in my shoes and think about how will I promote this internally and say to my staff around the world in Lithuania, in Moodys, you know, come to Lithuania, we're going to help you in your career, but by the way, if you're gay and married, then stay out because you're not welcome. So it does impact. I think, you know, it will go against our policy when we are promoting a diverse and inclusive environment, and then I cannot say, you know, if you want to move to Lithuania, we pay you for the ticket, for the accommodation and everything, But sorry, if you're gay and married, then you cannot come bring. It's not only the immigration policy needs to be broader than that, but it's a particular aspect that could hinder us from attracting talent into the country for sure.
Thank you. And Jean-Luc, if you have any
Yes, I would say
obstacles and other things.
obstacles. It's a tricky question. No, I'm just kidding, because it's rather difficult. But I would say in companies, my experience, the most problems come from the middle management. It doesn't come from the employee, it doesn't come from the top management. You have to convince the middle management layer that it's something which is important. And I think one of the most important questions is you need to get as many allies as possible in all levels, because you will only win the fight, if you like, if you have enough supporters. So I think one big challenge is to get so many allies as possible. Not only CEOs, that's also important, but we always say also people at different level. Because you can be the colleague, you can be the boss, you can be whatever, and you can always have an influence. One other challenge is visibility. We need to be more visible. Anywhere, in all countries, also here and others. We need to. I know how it could be difficult, dangerous, or challenging, but we need to be more visible. We need more role models. We need more videos like the colleagues from Poland show, etc. That people see we are not, if I may say so, I don't like the word normal, but we are usual normal people. We have a life, etc. And so I don't know how to say that, but I think we need to be visible. And that's something we need to work on all together, I would say. And I think we need to speak out more. And I mean we, also the companies, to stand up for our culture, our values, and say we don't accept this or that. We also as LGBT employees or as clients. I mean, when I see what happened, maybe you remember the story with Barilla, who many years ago, one of the boss of Barilla said something like, we only sell pasta to normal families. And then there was a ban decided by many people, and they lost 25% of their sales in a very short time. And since then, I can tell you, they have thought about it, and they have really changed, really deeply. And they are very pushing now for a few years in diversity, etc. and co. So, or in Germany as well, we had with Nivea, you know the cream, and there was it was rather funny because a marketing agency made a public statement saying that they were, I would say, afraid or shocked that Nivea refused to make publicity with gay couples, lesbian couples, etc. And through this press statement, want to waive, and to be honest, that case too, they have really thought about it and changed, or on the way of change. So we all have a power when we stand up, as company, as person, as client.
Thank you. I would like to ask also all three of you. We already spoke about it, but I think it's also important to share because sharing is caring. So
yes, yeah. For sure.
So I'll start from Amelia. Can you, as Telia representative, share diversity building practices? Maybe you mentioned that already, but maybe you missed something also.
Probably in the systemic approach that I've shared earlier. I guess what I can share is like how far have we gone since we took that journey. Intentionally, like from a practical perspective, we took on the journey like 4 years ago, we were looking into the different aspects of the diversity spectrum, yeah? Because we're not only talking about LGBTQI+, we even add A as allies, part of that spectrum, you know? But we're not only looking into that, we're talking about all, so that means like people with different abilities, we're talking about age, we're talking about parents, you know, single parents, people coming back on leave, and so on and so forth. So we're like practically talking about different people in the spectrum, right? So one of the things, one of the low-hanging fruits was, in the tech world, one of the prevailing challenges is gender. And how do we address that? We talk about being diverse and so on. This is something that we could clearly see. That's something obvious. And that's something that we could take action on in the steps towards diversity. And why is that important? Because when you solve a diversity issue, it opens up a solution for others. So in the journey, for example, towards gender parity, 4 years ago, we were looking at the composition of, let's say, in Lithuania, we've got like, if we look at the population of the total workforce, we could see about, let's say, 40% of female in the total workforce. So if we talk about parity, it's about representation of both. And over the course of years, we've seen positive trend because of intentional dialogue and proactive steps towards balance on both. This year, we have achieved balance since March this year. And I think that's one of the biggest achievements that we have in Lithuania, that we also share proudly among our colleagues in the Nordics and the Baltics, because as an organization, it was a goal for 2025. And for us, we've taken that milestone this year. And that is an inspiration to take further steps forward. For example, we also recognize that when we talk about diversity, you don't look at the people physically, understand that, hey, we have diverse representation, skin color, ability, and so on. That's not it. We also remind people about diversity of thought, diversity of minds. Because when you have diverse perspectives, then chances are you have more diverse approaches to different problems. And for a tech company like us, it's very important because that's how you get to innovate. Yeah.
Thank you. Mariano, I would like to actually ask, because you spoke a lot about your practices, I would like to ask, do you think Moodys Lithuania's office has more ambitions to develop this diversity campaign and diversity policies in the company, or do you think that you have already reached the ceiling, having in mind that Lithuania's legal system is not really flexible in that perspective?
No, we're definitely hungry to keep developing. You know, I'm very proud to say that one of the resource groups that was firstly formed by employees of the Moodys Lithuania office is the LGBTQI+. And I'm very proud also to say that I meet with them regularly, and by regularly I mean at least 3 times a month.
Wow.
And we speak a lot about from events that we need to participate in, constant communication with the LGL, for example. It's not only us asking them, where do you need help, but we're also asking them for help to give us seminars and education programs. So we are not satisfied, so we're going to continue moving forward. I must say that one of the things that has helped us a lot is that Moodys, as a global organization, has been awarded for over a decade, year after year, for our diversity and inclusive practices. We are on the Stonehenge magazine. We have, I can think about at least 5 or 6 awards that has been consecutively for over 10 years. So for us, opening the office in Lithuania, the easiest thing was to plug into what already Moodys has created and get all the resources and all the knowledge and all the journey that other countries have gone through and move the maturity curve a lot quicker. We also, going back into 2.5 years ago when the office was just about to be established, I think it's an important moment with Vladimir, because I was not employed by Moodys just yet. It was my last day in the previous company where I was in Baltic Pride marching with the LGL. And if you will spot the pictures where you will see me on the bus holding the flag of the Diversity Charter and the company that I was representing before, right in front of that bus, there are the first 5 employees of Moodys that were marching on behalf of Moodys. We didn't have an office yet, and we were already marching on Baltic Pride. People came from the UK to march in the Baltic Pride supporting us. People have already booked in their calendars June the 4th, 2022, to come all the way from New York to be with us on the Baltic Pride. So when you have that level of support at a global scale, it's easier to be hungrier for more. It's easier to understand that there is no ceiling. There will be frustrations and there will be difficulties along the way. But as long as you have the framework and the people willing to go the extra mile with you, then we're going to continue going. So it is important, as you mentioned before, it's not only a top-bottom, but it's also a bottom-up organization. And giving a voice to employees and giving them the time to do experimentation and try and succeed, it is the quickest way for us to keep moving progressively forward.
Thank you very much, and I'm afraid we are stepping already over the time for another presenter, but maybe just if you have closing remarks, just very briefly, three of you, 1 minute each, if it's possible.
You start, you didn't speak yet.
So should I? Or?
So you'll be, Jean-Luc, you're going to be the main guy here.
Okay, wow.
Finish it.
Well, I mean, I can only agree with what you said. So I would say, for me, the summary is we all have to stand up. We have to work together, and I think we can move a lot. And one thing I also often say is always try the limits. Try to push your company, your country, always a little bit further. See how they react, and then go step by step. And it's the way you can change things. But you have to have, like many of you, you have to have a long breath. It takes time, but if we don't do that, and if we don't try always to push things a little bit forward, try to be a little bit more open to do more, we will not change that much, or we cannot change as much as we could. And that would be, let's say, my message. Let's try and go on doing.
Actually, it's not going to be your last word. We have Vladimir.
Okay. That's all right. That was a little bit early.
Yes, if I may, it's not a question. It's my part of my feelings, because I would like to use opportunity to come back in history and try to tell that in 2004 we did European Commission project open up at workplace, and we were quite stranger in somewhere lost in space, working with corporation and businesses, and nobody understand what we asking for. And that was 2004. Now we hit 2021, and I see that time is changing, and I hope that I will see more changes, but I understand that it's not easy situation for all of us, because we are kind of at shrinking space in Lithuania and Eastern Europe, because you see the changes on LGBT rights and human rights is real change. And I wish you be strong and be vocal as you are, because we need your voices for our LGBT community, because we need allies. Because if some politician not on our side, at least this empty space will be used by your corporation, and looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we too.
So thank you very much, Vladimir. And on this positive note, I would like to thank the panelists.